The basic idea of this whole series is that students would be benefited by learning the backstory of big, important cases that they read for their classes. And I was invited to do the one for criminal law story, so I got to pick which one I thought was the most interesting, and I went for the Supreme Court's recent decision on 3 strikes and you're out statute from California. The defendant had been convicted of shoplifting, and he got a mandatory sentence of 25 years to life, and the Supreme Court upheld it. I think that tells you why it's important. Right? So it's important in the lives of individuals, and it came a few years before the blockbuster decision in the last year upholding a district court's decision that California has to release thousands of prisoners to decrease overcrowding in the state prison system. So what we have is kind of a series of issues about very harsh sanctions that are imposed under state law and the constitutional ramifications of those. What do I want students to learn from this? And part of it, of course, is a deeper understanding of the constitutional issue of the 8th Amendment Cruel and Unusual Punishment Clause, and how much does it limit what states can do. But there's so much more that's behind that. So it's kind of a culmination of, or a combination of different things that students can take away depending on their own interests. So part of it is a story about how state political systems operate and how the systems in particular states operate. Part of it's a story about how cases get litigated in the U.S. Supreme Court. So I called the lawyers that had worked on the case, and I was able to talk to them about their preparation, about the argument, what they felt about the argument. I have quotes from the transcript of the argument. So it's about the case, it's about the enactment of the laws that presented the issue and the constitutional background of those in a much richer way than students could read just from reading that case itself. And it does have broader ramifications. So if the federal Constitution doesn't impose limits, where do those limits come from? What happens after the case is decided? So I have a discussion in there about efforts subsequently to change the law. Really interesting discussion about, well, I thought it was interesting, about Justice Kennedy, the kind of author of the theory that denies relief in that case, going to the American Bar Association and saying to the legal profession that our policies here are seriously misguided, but it's not a constitutional question, it's something that we should all be working on. And the reform efforts that proceeded after that, which frankly were unsuccessful, and led to and helped to bring about the crisis in funding and the crisis in overcrowding in the systems, and took that case, that California case, back to the Supreme Court. So there are lots of different dimensions, and it gives students a chance to see those different possible sides to the case. And I'm sure for each student there's a different set of those issues that's the most interesting.